Good afternoon. My name is Jeff D. Decker, and I'm the Manager of Communications and Media with the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency. Today, the SPSA will provide an update on flooding that is impacting communities. Feel free to record, cut clips, and quote today's call as needed. I would also like to note that we are recording the call as well, and it will be available online later today or later this week. Joining us today are Steve Roberts, SPSA Acting President, Tyler Harrison, SPSA Manager, Emergency Services, Patrick Boyle, Executive Director, Communications and Client Services for the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency, Leah Clark, Executive Director, Irrigation and Economic Development, Saskatchewan Water Security Agency, and Dan Palmer, Senior Communications Consultant, Ministry of Highways. Updates will be provided by the SPSA, the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency, and the Ministry of Highways today. After that, members of the media will have the opportunity to ask one question and one follow-up at a time. Please be advised that this technical briefing has a hard stop at 2:30 p.m. Now, let's move forward with the update on behalf of the SPSA. Today, I would like to provide an update on the flooding conditions across several Saskatchewan communities. The details mentioned are as of 9:30 this morning. In the RM of Aberdeen, a local emergency was declared on April 22nd. There are no changes in the flooding status, and the emergency service officer remains in contact with the community. At Beardy's in Okamasas Cree Nation, conditions are stable and equipment is being picked up because it's no longer required. In the village of Buchanan, flooding is currently under control, and in the village of Canwood, water levels remain manageable at this time. In the town of Foam Lake, local emergency was declared on April 21st. Water has now receded and the situation has stabilized. However, warmer weather may bring a second wave of flooding, so the community continues to monitor conditions closely. In the RM of Evergarden, the emergency declared on April 24th remains in place with no changes in the flooding status. In the RM of Meadow Lake, the emergency that was declared on April 21st was extended on April 27th. A few roads could wash out if the water levels rise, which may temporarily strand 7 homes. Residents are aware and prepared with emergency supplies. No additional resources are needed at this time, and the ESO remains in contact. In the city of Melville, conditions are stable, and a permit has been submitted to move water along the Department of Highway roads. In the village of Pierceland, the Beaver River is now flowing, and there are no changes in the flooding status. In the RM of St. Louis, the emergency declared on April 22nd remains in effect, but the flooding situation has stabilized. In the RM of Elfrose, a local emergency was declared on April 23rd. A few roads remain closed, but overall conditions have stabilized. Finally, in the village of Loon Lake, the community has requested equipment and manpower for flood protection, and ESO will be on site today and to support their needs. We will continue to monitor all affected areas and provide updates as conditions evolve. With that, I will turn it over to Leah Clark for an update from the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency.
Thanks, Jeff. So yesterday, the Water Security Agency issued a high flow advisory for a large area extending from northwestern Saskatchewan near Buffalo Narrows down to southeastern area near Yorkton. This encompasses areas around Lloydminster, Meadow Lake, Buffalo Narrows, La Ronge, Prince Albert, the Battlefords, Watrous, Melfort, Nipawin, Tisdale, Hudson Bay, and Yorkton. Cooler conditions over the past several days have slowed snowmelt, but temperatures are forecasted to gradually increase over the coming days, with overnight lows remaining above freezing later this week. May 2nd is the date where a number of the communities with higher snowpack are forecasted to see those overnight lows above freezing. These conditions may result in rapid snowmelt in areas where snowpack remain or where runoff has not started yet. The accelerated melt could cause river flows to rise more rapidly and reach higher levels than forecasted, increasing the risk of localized overland flooding. WSA will have a map with updates on our website later today and daily going forward. Previously, WSA also issued an advisory for potential ice jams, and this is still in place as conditions still exist for those ice jams to potentially form. To date, Water Security Agency proactively made 491 phone calls and follow-up emails, adding up to nearly 1,000 touch points, with more than 140 municipalities, tribal councils, and First Nations providing information on conditions, flood mitigation programs, or offering other assistance, like putting them in touch with SPSA when needed.
Thank you, Leah. Now I'll pass it over to Dan Palmer for an update from the Ministry of Highways.
Thank you. As you heard, my name is Dan Palmer with the Ministry of Highways. I'm just going to share my screen here and we'll go through a couple of quick updates here on the highway hotline. So in East Central Saskatchewan, if everybody can see my screen here, East Central Saskatchewan, the Yorkton region is where we see some of our highways closed due to flooding or some water on the road. Right now here in Foam Lake on Highway 310, we've got closures related to flooding north and south of Highway 16. So as you can see here, there's one and there's the other. On Highway 357, which is here, this is near the junction of Highway 8 south of Kamsack. This is kind of close to the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. Again, we have a closure there due to flooding. We've got two areas in the region here where we've got some water on the road and it's impacting traffic slightly. So here is Highway 309 east of Ebenezer. We got water on the road, so it's down to one-way traffic in that location. And the other one is on Highway 8 north of Langenburg. We got water over the road here, which I'll just stop sharing my screen here right now. So the Ministry of Highways, we continue to closely monitor problematic areas as well as the changing conditions across Saskatchewan. We're prepared with equipment and personnel in place to respond to emerging concerns as needed. We continue to have open lines of communication with the Public Safety Agency and the Water Security Agency. We're prepared and able to respond to flooding incidents as well as to continue to support public safety efforts. But the key message here is, check that highway hotline before you're heading out on your routes to see how water or flooding may be affecting your routes and to plan accordingly. And of course, once you get your destination, check it again because conditions can change rapidly. And so, of course, can the roads. That's it for my update. Thanks, SPSA, for having us today.
Thank you for your update, Dan. Now we'll move into the question part of today's media briefing. Please use the raised hand function to indicate that you have a question. You will then be recognized when it is your turn. I would like to remind you to turn on your microphone and your camera when asking your question, and then to turn the camera and microphone off when you are finished. I would also ask that when media members, before asking the question, please identify themselves and the media outlet which they are representing. If there are additional questions afterwards, please send them to the SPSA's communication unit inbox, media.spsa@gov.sk.ca. This is the SPA's main contact for all media. If there are any questions for the SPSA after today, this is the account they should be sent to. So let's start the questions. Let's go to Christopher.
Yeah, thank you. Chris Vandenbrekel with Global News here. In regards to this flooding season, I don't remember before in my media career getting these spring updates from WSA and SPSA in this format. Is this a new effort or is this a matter of the flooding is worse this year than we usually see?
Leah, would you like to start us off on that one, please?
Yeah, I can. I think, we have been seeing higher than average snowpack, and we are seeing higher than average runoff events in regional areas within Saskatchewan. I'm just looking at a map here where around that Meadow Lake area, it was a 1 in 100 year event that they saw for runoff. That was the most extreme. In other areas, 1 in 25 was really common through a line through Saskatchewan. So it is higher than average, and so just trying to react to some of the asks that we're getting.
How much of this is rivers overflowing from spring breakup versus overland flooding from all the snowpack that we've had?
Lee, if you would like to start us out on that one.
I think that's really hard to quantify at this time. It's a mix of everything, really.
Dan, any thoughts on that, or?
Sorry, my mic was off. Could you just repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I was asking about how much of this flooding that we're seeing is it from mostly from rivers, from ice breakup versus overland flooding? Like, what are you guys seeing from the highways perspective as to where this flooding is happening?
So we're seeing it today, obviously in East Central Yorkton area through some of those closures that I mentioned. But in terms of sort of forecasting where it's going, that might be a better question for the Water Security Agency.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Christopher. Let's move on to JD.
Hey, JD Houghton here with Discover Moose Jaw. I just had a question. Doesn't relate to flooding as much, but just kind of for the SPSA or Water Security Agency. I was just kind of curious to see here at at Buffalo Pound and Lake Diefenbaker, which are the two lakes that kind of surround or around Moose Jaw, kind of what the ice thickness is currently, what you guys are seeing, especially with warmer temperatures coming this weekend. I just wanted to ask if there's still ice on those lakes, and if so, how thick it is. I know people might try to venture out there, so I was just wanted to get an idea of that.
Leah, I think that might be up your alley again.
Yeah, I'll start. I was on the road yesterday and saw some of these areas. So we are seeing a lot of that open water, ice breakup, large patches of open water. So I would say, to your point of anyone considering venturing out on that, not the time to do that with the temperatures and the ice thickness that I saw out there.
JD, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just again, if I know you saying that people don't always listen to what they're told, but if they do, if there are some patches where they they do attempt to take a smaller vehicle onto it, just some basic tips on how to protect themselves.
Tyler, is that something you could handle for us?
I could try. No, so first off, the safest way is just not to go at this time of year. I mean, that's number one. Although the ice might look like it's thick and it might still look solid, the ice rots fairly quickly in the sunshine. So although it looks thick, it's not safe to be out there. So that'd be the messaging.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, JD. Next, Jeremy.
Hello, Jeremy Symes here with the Canadian Press. I'm just wondering, when you look at the province overall, where is the province most concerned with flooding and where the risks are more prevalent right now?
Leah, if you mind taking that, please.
Oh, great question, Jeremy. So we will have some maps go up on our website later today that will help kind of give a visual to what I'll try to describe right now. Just so that you take a look there, because I know I like visuals. But there's a few kind of areas that we're looking at, and so of course we put out that advisory that encompasses the larger areas that we're looking at. But really, where we see high snowpack is where we're looking at. And so there's a little bit of north of Lloydminster, and then going to north central Saskatchewan. It comes down south a little bit to just east of Saskatoon. And then north of that Yorkton area, we're still seeing some snowpack that is going to be melting here. So those are kind of, I know that's a broad net I cast there, but the map will help.
Okay. And then just a question about, I think the Meadow Lake, the RM there, 7 homes, I guess they have to be prepared to evacuate potentially. There, because they could be at risk of flooding, or they could see some flooding into their properties. Do I have that right?
That was brought on to us through our ISAT program today, and that they have been in contact with the ESO on site, and preparations have been made to have them prepared to evacuate if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Logan, you're up next.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yep. Could you turn your camera on,
Yeah.
please, Logan?
I do not have a camera, unfortunately. But my question is for the SPSA. I don't know if you guys heard this either. I'm Logan Lehman, PAnow.com. But with the SPSA also being responsible for wildfires, how do shifting conditions from flood risk to fire season affect your guys' planning?
Okay. Tyler, do you want to take a run at that one? Oh, no, we're going to have Steve Roberts take a run at that one, please.
Sure. I'll just let you know is that the Public Safety Agency is an all hazard agency, which means that any natural occurrence, disaster hazard that occurs is our responsibility. So we actually prepare for both. So at the same time, we were preparing pumps and hoses for wildfire response in the upcoming season. We were at the same time making sure our sandbaggers equipment, that we had a stock of sandbags and that kind of material. And again, we will take any response for assistance, regardless if that's a grass fire. And even a couple of years ago, there's even instances where we will be doing both flood work and wildfire work at the same time. So we're equipped to do both and we'll respond accordingly.
Right, Steve. And could a wet spring reduce wildfire risk later, or does it just create more challenges down the line?
It's obviously slowed down the wildfire season compared to this time last year. We were already seeing numerous fires. We will see a slower start. The biggest constraint is water on the landscape will indeed green up faster. What we saw last year, which led to some of our problems, is we never did receive a big snowpack, and it was followed by no rain, which means that the grass did not turn green, the leaves did not pop out, and became very dry, very high risk, and maintained that way through the early season right into summer.
Mm-hmm. And
Logan, that's your 1-and-1 follow-up. We're going to go to Azure next, please.
Sorry about that. Ashley McGonigal with SaskToday.ca. With the amount of runoff that we're already seeing this year, what does the water table look like going into spring?
Yeah, if you could handle that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's already been talks, but in the north of the province, we were in a deficit, right? And so precipitation is welcome there in that region. And I think overshadowing kind of the runoff and some of the things we're dealing with right now, it was largely a benefit to the system there. So I think it's going to be a good thing for that water table to bring it up and hopefully it de-risks some of the issues we saw last year.
And then what is the potential for any further flooding if the province sees a substantial rainfall at all?
That's a good question. So rain is one of the variables, temperature, of course, being another. With where we're at right now and the temperatures we're seeing, rain would add add to the runoff events that we're seeing. So that's something that we're watching. Like I said, with the updates on our website, we're also taking a look at those weather forecasts and providing information as it's updated.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've run through our initial media questions. We have a few minutes left, so we'll try to fit in a few more follow-ups if you are interested, media members. So let's go back to Christopher.
Thank you very much, Chris Vandenbrekel, Global News. In terms of the peak of flooding season with your forecasting tools and what we're seeing, when can we expect to reach the peak of flooding season, and when will things start to abate overall? I know some areas have stabilized, but overall, what are we seeing in terms of when the peak will come?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's such a variable thing that we're managing here with forecasts and whatnot. So we of course are that line keeps kind of receding back. That forested area is kind of the next kind of new place that we're going to see some of that runoff. But sorry, I can't answer that question specifically. Just lots of variables at play here.
This might also be a high variable question here, but when it comes to potential evacuations, I know we spoke about those 7 homes in the Middle Lake RM. Are we expecting to be dealing with any more evacuations in the coming weeks due to flooding?
Tyler or Steve, would either one of you care to answer that for us?
Yeah, I can go. If you want to go first, Steve.
Sure, I was just going to say a general statement. At this point, in the flood season, all our flooding has been localized. So again, impacting relatively small levels of communities. We're not talking, large water bodies at this point. I mean, that's a different situation. That's not currently what Saskatchewan's experienced. So a lot of those can be locally mitigated, and we're helping communities do that if that's needed.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Chris. Let's go to Kelly.
Yeah, my apologies. Team says I do not have an available camera. I apologize for that. Kelly Provost, CBC News. Do we have a province-wide tally of properties that have been affected, and where have, I guess, most of the properties been affected? Which regions?
Yeah,
Tyler?
I can provide a little
Thank
bit.
you.
So we don't have a full tally of all the affected properties within the province at the moment. We do know that a few around the Meadow Lake area have been. As Steve mentioned, it is all localized flooding, so we haven't seen those wide swaths of impact, I guess you could say, across a large area. So I don't have that number exactly of how many there are.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of states of emergency, we heard some in the opening there, but what is the current number in terms of local states of emergency related to flooding, and where are those local states of emergency?
So currently we have 3 local states of emergency that have been declared. We've had a few that have expired over the last 24 hours, but right now we have the RM of Elfrost, RM of Invergordon, and the RM of Meadow Lake currently declared.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Kelly. Azar, this will be your kick at the cat here, and this will be our last questions for the day.
So Leah had mentioned that there are areas that see flooding a lot more often than others. My question is more for the highways. Is this something that the highway department is going to be looking at for better drainage in the future when putting like culverts and such in?
So the Ministry of Highways, when it's looking at what it's going to do for its capital or maintenance program throughout the year, it takes into account the entire province based on priorities of that particular year. And it plans out in a fairly long window. So as it's doing projects, it certainly takes into account whether culverts need to be replaced, whether greater capacity as we move projects forward when it's cost effective to do that. Having said that, we do have, emergency culvert replacements when they're needed, bridge repairs as needed. We just saw one up in Meadow Lake where it was briefly closed and our crews moved in, and now it's temporary open. So it is, in terms of long-term planning, always part of the mix in terms of priorities.
And are any of the affected areas going to see any of those emergency replacements or work?
I can't speak to that specifically, but it is something that we plan for over the long term.
Okay, thank you.
All right, everyone. So that is the end of our question period. I want to thank everyone for attending and participating.